Hello there everyone, UXW Bill here once again. You know, fall is a curious mix of things that I do and don't like. On the one hand, the temperatures have cooled off very nicely. It's between 50 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit here during the day, a little chillier at night. And I also love the beauty of fall as the trees turn color and they become all those beautiful hues. You can drive through the countryside and just see an amazing range of colors all around. Unfortunately, the trees turning color brings me to one of the things that I really don't care for in the slightest about the fall season, and that is people raking up leaves and almost invariably burning them. And of course, with the way things are around here, they're only allowed to burn leaves on the weekend. So when everybody's home from work and they're wanting to go outside and do things, the air is just choked with leaf smoke. If you think that I would be a proponent of a burn ban at risk of expressing a potentially obnoxious opinion here, you are absolutely right. And I'm not even allergic to leaf burning smoke. I just don't like it and I don't think that it's necessary. But rather than get bogged down in that, I'll tell you about the other thing that I don't really enjoy about fall, and that's the shortening of the days. You know, during the summertime, there are times when we can have sunlight almost until 9 o'clock at night here. It's not a whole lot of sunlight. You wouldn't want to have to look for a lost contact lens or something by that pitiful amount of light, but it's certainly better than nothing at all, and it's far, far better than the days ending at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which when we go off of daylight savings time here in another day or two, they will unfortunately be doing. And that, although I do not consider myself a person who suffers from the so-called seasonal affective disorder, which I believe to be a very real and common concern for people, it still kind of bothers me that, you know, the days are so short, and I just can't wait for the spring and the summer to roll around once again. Even though things are heating up and getting rainier, the longer days and the switch to daylight savings time are certainly things that I enjoy. So in light of the fact that the days are getting shorter and shorter around here, I thought I would actually take the opportunity to do some videos that are situated outdoors, even though the videos in question really don't have anything to do with the outdoors. You can see I've set up a computer here. This is a Dell Dimension L600R series system. And I did something recently. I have not installed Windows 98 in a very, very long time. Now don't get me wrong here. For its time, Windows 98 was a great operating system. I loved it back in the day. It's certainly still fun to piddle around with it today and to do things like playing vintage games with it, or even just to wander down memory lane every now and again. But in the face of operating systems that have for pretty much all of the last 15 years or thereabouts brought us unquestioned stability and long uptime, even in the face of applications that might fail along the way or something along those lines, Windows 98 has not aged particularly well. And again, it's not my intention to offend anybody who loves Windows 98, but the facts are the facts. And I certainly ran into plenty of little oopsies and wingdings and things like that while I was setting this machine up. This is a computer that came from Weasel 2 HTM. He left this here a couple of years ago. Dell must have sold a ton of these things because I still find them around from time to time at garage sales and things like that, and they certainly got their money's worth out of this design. They sold these Dimension L series computers from, I think around sometime in mid-1998 up until around 2002 or thereabouts. And then they actually changed the color of these systems, but they kept the motherboard and the case tooling. Everything but the color of the case remained the same when Dell introduced the Dimension 2100, which was pretty much their cheapest offering in the Dimension lineup, below even things like the Dimension 2300. And I know they sold that system through at least 2002, 2003, somewhere in there. I don't know exactly when they pulled the plug on it, but only rarely does a computer system enjoy that kind of a run in relatively unchanged form, especially in those times when technology was very, very rapidly evolving. So again, I come back to the question of why did I set this computer up running Windows 98? Well, I have something in mind for it, something to demonstrate for you today. And here that something is right now inside this plain cardboard box. This is actually something that I saw at the Salvation Army. They rarely, if ever, have computer-related goodies there, and a lot of times when they do, they're just things that nobody wants, like beat-down, cheap inkjet printers and stuff like that. And I probably would have passed over this box were it not for the fact that someone wrote on it, security camera, marked at $5. I'm guessing that someone tried to unload this particular item at their garage sale. And I thought to myself, well, you know, that probably merits a second look. And so I went ahead and popped open the box. I did not find a security camera, at least not something that was properly intended to be a security camera when it was marketed new, although you could certainly press it into such duty. Instead, I found a 3Com BigPicture video conferencing kit. They bill this as a, excuse me here while I unfold the instructions, they bill this as a video phone camera and PCI capture card for use with Microsoft Windows, although in this day and age, I'm sure that the capture card hardware with this thing probably would work under other operating systems as well. We'll go ahead and come back to the instructions in just a minute. Meanwhile, I'll show you how they did this way back in the day, because it's a lot different than how they do it now, and in my opinion, it might even be better. I have not yet tried out this particular camera to see what kind of picture quality it delivers, but the one thing I have noticed about webcams, even modern webcams, is the fact that they have okay image quality some of the time, but they get things wrong that they just absolutely should not get wrong. Things like exposure adjustment, auto-focusing, color white balance, stuff like that. 1980s camcorders, which you might expect to have problems with such things, oftentimes blow webcams squarely out of the water. This one, however, is a slightly different approach, where all the webcams that you're likely to find today are using USB connections with a few FireWire ones sprinkled around every now and again. This webcam is actually using a composite video output. You will also notice that it has a barrel-style connector for power. It actually gets its power from the capture card that it comes with, and we've got some software for it right here, as well as information about service and support. Obviously, at this point in time, 3Com had purchased USRobotics, and they were probably in the process of changing the product's name, so I'm not surprised to see both companies mentioned here. Anyway, what else have we got? We have a product registration card, and in a first for product registration cards everywhere, this thing actually comes with instructions that tell you how to do it. I'd like to think that we as a society don't need instructions to fold and mail a simple postcard, but I don't know. My years of working in information technology and sometimes in a end-user support capacity have definitely made me wonder. This is a little mount for the camera. You just place it here, and nothing more significant than gravity holds the camera in its place. It's entirely possible that gravity was not totally effective at this, as you can very clearly see that there is a little bit of tape residue on the top of the camera. And also, while it says 3Com BigPicture in the documentation, the camera very definitely says USRobotics. Again, I'll get back to the camera in just a moment. What I wanted to point out, and the real reason that I ultimately bought this, was the inclusion of not one, but two video capture cards. And all I can guess is that maybe there was some sort of a business or something that bought several of these cameras, and while you'd think there would be a one-to-one relationship of cameras to capture cards, well, for some reason there wasn't. I don't know, maybe somebody was having a hard time with their capture card, and 3Com or USRobotics, either one, sent them some replacements. But one thing can definitely be said, neither one of these have ever been opened. So I don't know what the story is with them. I do know that right now we are going to go ahead and open one of them, because there are some things that I want to show you about them. Some things that I thought were very interesting, and perhaps you will as well. But if not, feel free to skip over this particular portion of the video while I engage in unquestionably ESD handling regulation compliant option card handling practices for personal computers. Alright, here's the card in all of its glory. Got a date code of 9649, the 49th week of 1996, so almost at the end of the year. A copyright of 1996, and over here, buried under the composite video input connector, we have a company name. And I was very surprised to see this. The company name is actually Hop Hog Computer Works. Yes, that is actually how that is pronounced. I always thought that it was Hopage, but I was corrected about that when I made a video about the capture card in my old video capture PC. So you learn something new every day. Apparently 3Com and USRobotics just decided it would be cheaper to farm out the manufacture of this card to another company that already had a fair bit of experience in manufacturing these sorts of things. There's also some fine print down here at the bottom of the card that says Axiom Design. I don't know exactly where they factor into any of this, but maybe a little bit of well-directed web searching later we'll find out for sure. This unit is based on the BT, later Connexent, 848 video decoder. This is a very popular chip, been produced for a very, very long time. I don't know if anybody's actually using it to this very day, although I did see it a couple of years ago on some then current model surveillance capture cards. They actually later developed a multiple input version of this card that was able to, this chip I mean, that was able to process multiple video streams at once. In this particular case, this chip is woefully underused. It might even be fair to say that it's wasted in this particular application, because although this chip would support video inputs from not only composite sources but also a TV tuner, it would also support S-video, and it looks like there actually is completely unused solder pads for an S-video connector on this particular card. So the card is definitely an interesting piece, and while you probably have to use it with the drivers that 3Com and USRobotics developed back in the day for the conferencing software that they provided to work, although that may not be true, there is a very nice driver that was written for these BT 848 and 878 series chips that's known as BT WinCap. It fixes a massive amount of bugs with the reference drivers that were originally supplied for these chips, and it makes it possible to use those chips on systems that have multiple processors, either physical or logical installed, because the original BT or Connexent driver is actually not multi-processor safe, and it will cause an immediate stop error in most cases if you try to use it. Now, I haven't totally investigated the reasoning behind that, but I think that what I am telling you is, for reasonably small values of correct, the complete and correct story. So there's the video capture card. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the instructions very quickly here. We'll go ahead and see what we need to do in order to get this done. Now, I did notice that somewhere along the way, it was on the capture card package, of course, that they mentioned not installing any of the hardware until after you had installed the software. So we'll go ahead and see what's going on here. And they do want you to install the software first. Fortunately, come back here, we have the software to install. Right there it is. Just one disk. So we'll go ahead and pop it into this machine, which is now, I note for no other reason than the fact that I can, on its third optical drive. The one it came with was dead. The one I put into it developed a blown tray belt sometime along the way. Still had the D-band CD in it from not long after Weasel gave it to me. I guess I just never got around to removing it, and so I ultimately stuck this inexpensive Samsung early CDRW drive into place. It's not really productive to use it as a writer anymore because I haven't actually found any writing software that supports it, and when I contacted Samsung asking about the latest firmware, they told me that the SW204 drive, this model that you see on your screen right now, was actually so old that they did not provide any kind of support for it anymore. Alright, here we have some instructions from 3Com. It says, great, time for your next step. Leave your BigPicture CD in, shut down, and turn off your system. Very good idea, and definitely something that a lot of younger people these days would probably not be familiar with. Computers that wouldn't turn themselves off under ACPI or APM power control modes. You know, computers with actual hard power switches. So we'll go ahead and we'll shut this thing down and install the PCI capture card. Alright, -1 retention screw, simply because I didn't have it handy. There wasn't even a blank over that slot. We have the capture card installed, and the camera has also been connected to it. As you can see, Dell did not leave us very much room for expansion, at least in terms of PCI cards inside this particular computer, which actually bases on an Intel motherboard that Dell customized to a certain extent. I'm really kind of surprised that Dell went with this particular route, because there are solder pads on this board, and I have seen a version of this board that has integrated sound and Ethernet, meaning that the only expansion slot that they would have populated from the factory was that for Ethernet. But who knows, maybe the integrated peripherals were actually an extra cost option. Let's go ahead and plug this in. And there went the camera. And just see if we get some kind of smoke here. Well, no smoke. We're going to get a power on self-test? I certainly hope so. There we go. Beautiful. Well, while that's booting up, I'll go over here and lean on the keyboard with my ample tummy and cause a power on self-test failure of the keyboard related sort. I'll go ahead and put that back where it belongs. I did not notice earlier that this camera actually has a separate microphone connector, and it appears that this microphone does require some sort of an electrical energy source to power its elements. So it's probably a condenser microphone of some kind. I'll go ahead and turn the camera's power on here. You can see that there are a number of different controls on the back of the camera here. We have a power switch, pretty good way of ensuring your absolute privacy and something that you don't see on most USB webcams, a contrast adjustment, and 3 video-related controls. We have backlight compensation, white balance adjustment, and a negative and positive image switch. Its function is actually explained in the documentation, but as I'm not looking at the documentation right now, I could not tell you exactly what it's up to, but now you can see that the power LED on the camera is glowing quite nicely. And we have an installation program here, which is probably pretty a simple matter of just clicking. Oh, it wants me to enter a whole bunch of registration information. I wonder if I can get out of that without exiting setup. Nope. Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do with that. Oh, man. I'll just enter some crazy information in here. I don't think it's going to submit it online or anything along those lines. Alright, I went ahead and put all that information into the setup program, and some of it may have been abject lies. And I went ahead and moved on through. I decided to do the custom installation. As you can see, we get a thorough helping of some completely obsolescent software here, such as Adobe Acrobat 3 and RealPlayer. Remember Real Networks? They're still around, believe it or not. RealPlayer Plus 5.0, and then the meat and potatoes of the package, White Pine Software's CU-See-Me. That was the name in video conferencing back in the day. I actually played with that back when it was still a new idea, along with a monochrome Connectix QuickCam that, as I remember, it actually attached to the parallel port on the system. We'll go ahead and remove some of these obsolete pieces of software that we don't need. I think there's a newer release of Adobe Acrobat on this machine. We'll leave everything else here that looks like it's directly related to the video capturing operation. I can assure you I read that license agreement very, very carefully. What you're looking at right now is the White Pine CU-See-Me 3.1.2 setup program. And ordinarily this would not be worth making a segment of video about, but I thought it was very interesting that 3Com configured this setup program to have pre-filled information, especially in the serial number field. Now ordinarily I would not show software serial numbers online, and I'm a little gun-shy about doing it, but let's face it, it's been 16 years since this software was developed, and I really doubt that anyone cares. I don't even know if White Pine Systems is still around or not. Okay, all of the software seems to be installed, and the capture card itself is accounted for. So let's see if this thing actually works, or if it's going to make 6-foot flames shoot out of the computer when I fire it up. I hope it doesn't do that. Let's see. Picture works. That seems a likely program that probably doesn't need any sort of an internet connection to function. And look at that. You can see some nut talking to his camcorder on YouTube. Unfortunately, I don't think that's what success looks like. There's definitely a problem with that picture. It's got all those vertical lines across it, and there's also some dancing herringbone patterns up and down the picture. I'm not sure what's wrong with that. I don't think the capture card could be broken. If it is broken, well, either I managed to zap it when I was taking it out of the package, or it was broken in the box, or maybe, just maybe, this camera doesn't work. So you know what I'm going to go do? I'm going to go grab another video camera that I know to work, and we'll see what kind of output I get from that. I ran upstairs very quickly and I grabbed a rather more serious video source than that little webcam. So let's go ahead and see how things actually happen to work with this thing cabled up. Go ahead and turn it on. And things are looking a lot more promising already. That's definitely a lot closer to what things should look like. The frame rate actually seems pretty good on the preview. See if we can zoom in there. There's the back of the Windows 98 box. The zoom on this camcorder for some reason is terrifically fast. It's almost instantaneous when it's not recording video to DV tape. But when you are recording with it, for some reason, the zooming action slows down quite a bit and does not behave in the full speed ahead fashion that it usually does. I don't know what the difference is. It doesn't make a whole lot of difference to this particular video. And just because I'm sure someone will complain if I don't do it, let's go ahead and point the camera at the screen just to get the feedback effect. This thing is actually capable of taking still pictures. I'm limited by the length of my cable, otherwise I'd find something a little more photogenic to take a picture of. But we'll see if that capability actually works here. Well, it certainly did something. There's a picture down there now where there wasn't one before. And this PictureWorks program also has the ability, although it seems to have, no, it's working, to record videos as well. So I might go ahead and have a shot at that and see what the recorded video looks like. And if the microphone and the little web camera happens to work, I'll go ahead and use it as the audio source, because I don't have enough adapters with me right now to hook up this thing's line level audio output to the line level input on the sound card. You are watching live video from the 3Com BigPicture capture card. Unfortunately, the built-in camera does not work, and the PictureWorks software limits you to capturing 30 seconds of video. So I'd better make it quick as I pan the camera around here. My time will soon be up. You are hearing audio from the BigPicture camera's built-in microphone, however. And that's that. So the little camera's a bust, and that's kind of too bad. I might pop it open at some point in time and poke around inside it and see if I can find something, because the fact that it almost manages to work and does produce a coherent image underneath all of that noise suggests that whatever the problem is might not be all that serious. Could be a break in the signal wire, could be bad capacitors, who knows what's wrong with it. I'll go ahead and pop it open sometime on a rainy day when I'm feeling bored, and if I happen to get it to work, I'll go ahead and post a follow-up. It is, interestingly enough, even somewhat surprisingly, actually a color camera. And I found something even more surprising about it when I took a look at the bottom side of it. You probably wouldn't see this on modern information technology equipment. Here's all the pertinent information about the camera. No hint of an actual manufacturer, although again, Googling or web searching some of the information down here might prove informative. But notice where it's made. It was made in Wales. You wouldn't see too much information technology equipment being made there today. It's all made in China now. So it's kind of a bummer that the little camera doesn't work, but at least the capture card seems to. And the capture cards are the real reason I bought the whole set. And they should work just fine as generic video capture devices with the 3Com or even the BT WinCamp drivers, which work up to Windows XP. Unfortunately, the developer of BT WinCamp seems to have dropped right off the face of the earth. But for now, thank you for watching, and feel free to leave a comment if you have one. Here we are in the portion of the setup process, and there go those stupid instructions again. The hazards of shooting video outdoors, I'm telling you what.